So let's give an answer to the question of what is CPU. The CPU, the central processing unit, is actually responsible for interpreting and executing commands. And CPU is a small microchip that resides within the CPU package. And to go through that, you have to deal with the CPU socket, because CPU socket is the connection between the motherboard and the processor. So as you can see in here, and you can see a CPU in here. And modern CPU sockets and processor packages are built in different architectures. So when you talk about modern CPU architectures, first you can talk about the pin grid array, in short PGA. The pins are actually on the underside of the processor package, and it is inserted into the motherboard CPU socket. And we have another type, land grid array, in short LGA, and this time the pins are actually in the socket instead of on the processor. So on the pin grid, the pins are underside of the processor package, and on the land grid, the pins are in the socket instead of the processor. So this part is important. So after talking about the CPU, we can also understand how the CPU is going to remain calm. So for that, we need the cooling systems. The cooling systems are actually the components that help your computer to perform better when you keep them cool. And computers are kept cool using active and passive cooling solutions. So you have two types. The one is active, the other one is passive. So why is the difference? The active solutions actually require power, while passive solutions do not actually need the power. And passive solutions for cooling usually involve reducing the speed at which the component is operating or adding heat sinks to computer chips. You can see a passive one in here. So it's a huge one, but it's passive. There is no moving component. But on the active one, you see a fan that is moving, and you actually need power. So because of that, it is active. And when you deal with a case, you also come up with some case fans. And those case fans are also considered as active cooling. So next, we can talk about some of the memory types. When you deal with memory, you need to understand different memory types. We can have read-only memory. This is actually the ROM chip. And when you think about memories, memory actually the chips where you store data in the form of bytes. And a byte is a block of 8 bits stored as either 0 or 1 in the memory chip. But when you talk about the memory types, this read-only memory is ROM, and you can only read from it. And there is also a random access memory. This is the temporary working storage for data and programs that are being accessed by the CPU. And RAM is also a volatile type of memory. So when you close your computer, the information on the RAM is over. It's gone. And when you add more RAM to your computer, actually it enhances the system performance. So you need to be able to add more RAMs as possible. But of course, like in everything, there's a limitation. The maximum amount of RAM that can be installed is limited by the motherboard. So if you want to add 64 gigabytes of memory, you need to go and buy a motherboard that actually supports that. Because otherwise, although you have more memory, the motherboard will not understand it, and the motherboard will not help you enhance your system because it doesn't support that much memory. So in this video, we talked about 3 different PC components. The first one was CPU, and we understood different types of CPUs in terms of architecture. We also understood some cooling systems in terms of how it can help you to cool your system and perform it better. And another part where if you increase, you will have a better enhanced computer is actually the memory, especially the RAM part. But of course, as we just talked about it, we have some limitations according to the motherboard choice that you have for your personal computer.